Hello and welcome to the Insights Overflow podcast, the show where we talk to customers, partners, and industry leaders about the lessons that they've learned in order to make an impact. Today I'm sitting down with Tjaart Bester, who's the head of IoT solutions at Advannotech. Tjaart, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Andrew. Thank you for the coffee, by the way.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So your title is in IoT solutions. So when somebody thinks about IoT and thinks about solutions, what does it actually mean to implement an IoT solution?
It's an excellent question because it's not really what you think it would be. It's throughout my tenure in IoT, I've learned a lot about what IoT is and what it isn't. And when it comes to IoT solutions, and what I have learned is that it's not an IoT solution. It's an IoT-enabled solution. Because it's very much, the lesson that we learned is that IoT itself isn't the solution. And we thought that, a few years ago when IoT just started, we thought that, you slap down a sensor, you've got a nice dashboard, you fuse your IT and your OT operations, and you've got live visibility of all your operations on a single pane of glass. And that was the dream. That's what you wanted to deliver.
Yeah.
Until we got to that point, and you have this massive amount of data, and it's beautifully visualized, and you can see everything in one page. You can go onto your phone and you can see what exactly the temperature of conveyor belt 17 is.
Correct.
And then we got to the question, so what? Now what?
Why?
Why is that important? So that's why I'm very big on saying it's an IoT-enabled solution. IoT is there to help you bring data, but that data itself isn't what really gives you the solution or what gives clients value. We were talking about it, that idea of thinking that a client wants, this visualization, near real-time visualization of what's going on in the operations. But at the end of the day, the solution is what value do you contribute to the clients? And that's where the challenge of IoT comes in, is that reframing of saying, it's not about the sensor and the visualization, it's what can you do with the data that you extract from something in the real world?
I suppose it's much like any emerging technology, the technologists jump on it first, they get all excited about the things that they can do, and it takes a while for businesses to really catch up and sort of realize value. And I think maybe sort of the whole AI train is sort of in that same conundrum. Everybody thinks they must jump in and try, but how do you translate that into business value?
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And it's exactly that same trend. If you look at the Gartner hype cycle and so on, I think IoT peaked on the hype peak in 2011.
Okay.
And by 2017, it had completely slipped off. It's not part of the plateau of productivity anymore. It's a core foundational technology. And I think with AI, and especially your generative type of AI, we're still figuring out really what the value of it is. I think we're approaching it very quickly, but it's very much that same idea.
Yeah. So when you look at, say, customers that are successful versus customers that are potentially not successful, what do you think the difference between those two customers are? What are the successful ones doing right when it comes to IoT, and how they able to get business value?
I think that the absolute biggest differentiator between the two is to that reframing of why are we using IoT? What is the value? What's the utility of IoT? And there was, again, sort of in the early era of IoT, we thought that the value of that is in the technological aspect. So if people fixate too much on the technology behind IoT, what protocols are you using? What's your security layers that you're using? What types of visualizations are you using? It's people like that who get caught up in the technical detail rather than the business value. So it's sort of that, how do we approach it? What's the reason for using IoT? Because if you go at it from a solution first approach to say, let's implement IoT to achieve then you've already failed. The right way to look at it, and this is where we've had success with our customers, is to say, what problem are we solving for you? And then you have to make that decision if IoT is actually applicable in that. There's sometimes technology isn't the solution to something. It could be a process thing, or it could be a people thing. So that's definitely, looking at it from a business value first, and then getting to IoT as a solution, versus starting off with IoT, having a hammer and looking for nails.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, so IoT, like any technology, it's a combination of key pieces of infrastructure and tech and platforms, etc. So what is the typical, let's call it, tech stack that a customer is looking for, or what you deploy for a customer?
Now that's a very good question, because I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I will make the statement that I think IoT is the most comprehensive type of technology solution that exists. Because you start off at the very fundamentals. You start off with almost the mechanical engineering perspective, because it's an actual physical sensor, the T in IoT is the thing. And knowing where to place that is already a make or break for your entire value chain. We found that, especially with vibration sensors, if you place it on the wrong spot on the piece of machinery that you're measuring, you're never going to extract the value that you want. Or something as basic as temperature and humidity sensors. How high do you place it? How many do you place in an area? Things like that. So when we talk about tech stack, it begins at that, are you using bolts or are you using double-sided tape? Because it makes a difference. And then moving to, what type of interfaces are there? What exists on premises? Are we reusing? Are we ripping and replacing? Are we adding on? So now it's that layer as well, to think, what is the correct type of sensor and what's the correct type of solution for that? And then only you really get to the software aspect. But now it's not even your cloud side. It's still the usually embedded side stuff that happens on the edge. You've got your edge processing as well. You've got your embedded devices, your edge processing, what happens there. Then only you get to your cloud side, and is it hybrid, or is it a cloud only? Is it an edge only type of thing? And then you get to your data analytics side. So you have to understand what is the insights that we're extracting from it. And then you get to your UX UI design, because that eventually it is a human that's using this. How do we visualize? How do we create reports and stuff? So it's an incredibly complex answer to, I think, a very simple question.
Yeah, and I think it seems simple on the surface, like most things, until you dive a little bit deeper. And I think one of the good and bad things about, let's call it, the IoT industry is that there's a lot of DIYers out there.
Oh.
So people think, cool, I can buy a sensor, I can maybe plug it into some free cloud service, like a Things board or something, whatever.
Yes.
Cool, and I can build a dashboard, or I can get my thing out that I'm looking to achieve. But what we find is that those are very limited in sort of the types of outputs that you can get. So a business, yes, although they can dabble in IoT themselves, but ultimately they should be looking to professionals in the industry to enable them to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. So obviously you guys fill that niche in terms of, okay, customer's got a problem, how do I solve this using this technology? Let me get a professional to assist me.
It's, you touched on a very good point, that idea of the DIY. And it's become something in the industry now. Your differentiator isn't your platform or your stack or your hardware anymore.
Okay.
It's become so democratized. Like you say, Things board, completely open source, extremely powerful platform, very secure, highly supported. You got your likes like your Raspberry Pis that you can do your edge processing on. You've got industrial versions of those. You've got your ESP32s that you can connect a whole bunch of sensors to. You've got your commercial stuff, your EWI links and your Sonoffs and things like that. Yeah. And again, that's when you make that transition to say your value isn't in your technology. It's how you use that technology. So it's very much like having the right tool for the right job. But if you don't know how to use that tool to create something that's greater than the sum of its parts, then you already set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, and I think also if you look at the difference between, let's call it consumer tech and business to business tech, you know, I've seen a lot of people think that I'm going to implement a sensor in geysers in people's houses. And, you know, they put forward this idea of like an insurance company use case, where it's like, if I can proactively monitor the geyser, I can limit claims of water leaks and all the stuff. So, you know, some of these use cases are quite far out there in terms of actual value. And they have a more consumer orientated approach where, to me, I believe sort of the true value lies in more, say, business to business type scenarios where either it's energy optimization or it's a workplace safety or workplace or environmental monitoring,
your comfort
etc.
and your employee health and wellness.
Exactly, yeah. So to me, it's like leave the consumers to do their consumer thing, and you know, think about, you know, what businesses want to solve, and then ultimately those businesses might want to look to monetize that particular solution. You know, there's customers of ours that are in, say, HVAC servicing, and for them, IoT is an enabler to be proactive in terms of supporting their existing maintenance contracts. So that's a huge benefit to them. So what are you seeing in terms of these business to business use cases? Like, what are the things that are really, really interesting and sort of get you excited about the types of problems that people want to solve?
No, absolutely. I want to touch on your example of the geyser use cases. I'm intimately aware with those use cases. And I can tell you, if you look at your, let's call it your more enterprise level IoT versus your more consumer IoT, it's day and night. It's two absolutely different industries. And I can tell you, one of the biggest mistakes a tech company can make is to try and play in both, because it's just you know, it's like creating a small economical car, but then also trying to create the world's fastest car.
Correct. Try to sell it to the same person.
Exactly. No, never ever try and manufacture it in the same facility. Yes. So definitely, it's not to say that there isn't a market for it, but it's not a market that is easy to play in. But when it comes to, when you say like your business to business, HVAC is an incredibly good example of that. It's usually one of the low-hanging fruits because of the fact that it consumes so much electricity. A very interesting use case that we're deploying right now is in a data center. And we monitoring the temperature and the energy, the temperature inside of the data center, and then the energy consumption of the data center itself. And what we have found is that the value in that is not to, there is the odd use case of, you know, raising an alarm if we've exceeded a temperature threshold or if the moisture level is too high or something like that. But what we found is that the data center is really, it's pumping its aircon way higher than absolutely necessary. There's one specific server that was running very hot, and you know, it's running at 60 degrees or so. So they set the aircon temp to 16 to really bring it down. But we found that server, it's a very consistent load. So it's 60, which is quite high, but electronics it's fine at operating in high temperatures. Yeah. It's the cycling that's the problem. And that, because that server had such a consistent load, we said, like, is it necessary to cool the entire data center for this thing to run at 60? You know, is it fine at 67 or even 70 degrees? Yeah. And it is. So we reduced the set point temperature, which from 16 to 19, which equated to about a 20% savings in that. And you never thought that, you know, it's this combination of these few things, you know, that's three endpoints that you're measuring, and it gives you this insight into it. So that's just an example of a use case. Smart agriculture is another one to make sure that you're not overwatering crops and that you're not wasting fertilizer on spots that are, already well fertilized, and that you can target spots, your precision farming type of idea.
And if you think about, say, what are people trying to achieve? People are trying to achieve an optimum set of input parameters. And the only way you measure what is optimal is you have to track that data.
Exactly.
Because how do you do a what-if analysis on something imaginary?
Yes.
In other words, how do you even quantify electricity against set point without tracking that data?
Exactly.
So IoT is also a means to prove certain business cases as well.
Exactly.
So it's part experimental and part operational, I suppose.
Exactly. And that's, when you get to that field, when you've got so much data, you'd imagine it's easy. You have your temperature and you plot it against your energy consumption and you get some sort of parameter that gives you efficiency. But there's so many hidden variables and hidden things that come into play that really will mess up that idea completely. And I mean, that's where your things like your AI and your ML come into play. When you've got all this data, you can't make sense of it anymore. It's almost impossible, except if you're some sort of PhD student or something like that. And that's then where you feed these things into an AI model, and you use ML, and you come up with something that you never thought, like the leaving the door open has a massive impact on your energy consumption type of deal. So rather focus on add a door closer type of deal. And it's something you'd never have thought of.
Yeah. And so in terms of what Advannotech's doing in their space, can you sort of talk about sort of your stack and what you're sort of deploying into the market, and what sort of that means to customers?
Absolutely. So I'm very proud of our co-created platform, VantageX, which we've purposely not named an IoT platform. It's a data fusion platform.
Got it.
And IoT is just an enabler of that. Again, it's a source of data. And what we've been able to achieve with that is it's insane. I'm so proud of that platform because of all these things that I'm talking about. It's not theoretical things. These are things that we've implemented using the platform. And it's stuff that it's easy to use. I always joke with our CEO, it's like, even I can do these things. And I'm not a data scientist. I'm not a programmer. I'm an electronic engineer by trade. And this is, it's so easy to use that platform and derive value quickly. I think one of the biggest benefits of the stack and just the way in which Advannotech operates, we don't just leave you with a platform. To say, here's a use case, here's a solution, here's a platform, login details, here's a training material. Good luck. Yeah. We're very proud in our idea of we're an end-to-end technology provider. So we've got on the very first side of it is your boots on the ground, the guys going, drilling holes into ceilings, bolting on sensors, connecting, wiring, putting in conduits, doing stress tests on-premises hardware, to that stage of connecting, collaborating with the client, which is, again, one of the biggest advantages of VantageX is that quick turnaround. You could go sit in a meeting with a client, you can listen to what they're saying, and you can change it as you go on the fly, and have that joint application development session really, really quick. And then moving on to supporting as well on the software side and on the hardware side. It's always that thing of IoT is easy until you get called at 1 a.m. on Christmas evening. There's a sensor in Hoedspruit, and now the gates to the Kruger National Park can't open, or something like that, or there's some critical piece of infrastructure that's not working anymore.
Yeah.
And that's really where it gets challenging.
And sort of if you look forward and say, well, what is the vision of what you guys want to achieve with that whole solution stack?
What we want to achieve is we want to become, I think it's quite ambitious, but quite achievable as well. We want to become South Africa's premier end-to-end digitization technology provider. So we want to go and help businesses, municipalities, government departments to go and look at what processes do they currently have, where is their inefficiencies, where can we come in and use IoT and use the data fusion platform, taking data from existing systems or disparate systems, combining it to only deliver value. Just have that few single lines that tells you your operation is running efficiently, but look at this conveyor belt, or this municipality has a low NPS, Net Promoter Score rating for these services, or whatever that might look like. That is where we want to come in, and I believe it's achievable. We've got the right tech, we've got the right partners, we've got the right attitude, and we have that vision to know what it is exactly what we want to achieve.
And then if you look at the world of AI as we see it now, how are you guys incorporating some of the aspects of this whole AI wave into the things that you're doing?
Absolutely. I think especially when you look at your generative AI, when we take a step back to that idea of only giving someone sort of input as to what is valuable to them, having a large language model assist you with that, to take that raw data, or how we would have our tech speak. It's like these RMS vibration value on this generator is within specifications at so many milli, to have something go and translate that to the different types of users as well. So that's obviously on our the Gen AI side, but definitely using AI in the correct way it's almost a given. That you have to use that in order to really derive something of deep value. You have your superficial things like saying the temperature is above where it should be. You don't really need AI for that. Right. But to understand that, why is the temperature above a certain value? That's where it comes in.
Yeah, I suppose that's always the hardest, is the why.
Exactly.
And, if you look forward 10 years and had to sort of imagine where we would be, where the industry would be, like, how do you see the world in terms of everybody getting on this digital journey, everybody leveraging LLMs? Like, what is your sort of own vision for how people will be using technology in sort of 10, 20 years or so?
I think it's going to be at a stage where, when computers came out, in the 90s, people were unsure what are people going to use computers for? What Bill Gates's reference, 128 kilobytes of RAM should be enough for anyone. And now we're at a stage where you almost cannot imagine a world without computers. I mean, our phones, as an example, just a smaller computer, it's almost unimaginable to not have these things, something as basic as a calculator or a camera or something. And that's where I see AI and IoT thriving or living. You will find some areas that don't have it, but your norm is going to be
just
that
ubiquitous.
digitized. Exactly. You can't really operate without it.
Correct.
Because your competitors are using it. So
sort of an everything connected world. Yeah. No, Tjaart, well, I appreciate you coming through today, and I enjoyed the conversation with you.
Thank you, Andrew.
And we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for watching. You've been watching the Insights Overflow podcast. See you on the next one.